Good evening, everybody. My name is Elena Sturman. I am the president and CEO of the Glaucoma Foundation. This is World Glaucoma Week, March 7th to March 13th, and we are especially happy to be presenting on a topic that is so important to many glaucoma patients. Welcome to today's webinar about monitoring your IOP, the iCare home tonometer, and MyEYES. In November, Dr. Lou Pasquale, the co-chair of TGF Scientific Advisory Board, answered some questions about the status of home tonometry in our bi-monthly newsletter. In that article, he noted that the iCare home tonometer is the only truly viable tool for remote IOP monitoring. He then pointed out that it's a very expensive device, and he gave some suggestions as to how physicians might some days be able to make it affordable for patients. Remarkably, MyEYES came onto the scene with a solution, and that's what we're going to talk about today. On today's panel are Paul Margolis, the founder and CEO of MyEYES. Paul works with software, medical internet companies, and is a successful founder, CEO, venture capitalist, and a private equity professional. He founded MyEYES to help patients get access to iCare technology at home. Dr. Barbara Verostko, MyEYES co-founder and medical consultant. She is adjunct professor of ophthalmology and biomedical engineering at the University of Utah, a board-certified ophthalmologist, glaucoma specialist, and a researcher. Barbara is also a member of the Glaucoma Foundation Scientific Advisory Board. Chris Epperson, ophthalmic medical technician and director of operations at MyEYES, and Dr. Kira Farina, a glaucoma patient who uses iCare Home and has firsthand experience with MyEYES program. Welcome all. I'm going to turn to Paul now. And if you have a question for Paul or any other panelists during the webinar, just click on the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Paul, take it away, please.
Thank you, Elena, and welcome everybody this afternoon. This is a pretty exciting opportunity to talk about home tonometry. But we have some experts with us, Barbara and Chris in particular. And so I'm going to try to make my remarks really brief. I founded MyEYES with Barbara and Chris because I learned from my own experience, which I'll explain in a moment, the advantage of being able to monitor my eye pressure, intra-ocular pressure at home. And Barbara was my ophthalmologist. And along the way, I asked Barbara, gee, why doesn't everybody have the ability to measure their pressure at home? And she said, they really should. And that's what started the discussion. I was diagnosed with glaucoma 16 years ago. I've got at this point what Barbara would call advanced glaucoma. About a year ago, I really started asking myself, if eye pressure is very important, why am I only measuring my pressure 4 times a year, which is how often I went to my ophthalmologist. So I did a lot of work to find out about measuring my pressure another way. And I learned about the iCare Home. And that started a process which took me probably 3 months to try to find a way to get a hold of one of the machines. The places where I was being treated were all institutions where it was just too bureaucratically impossible for them to get a machine for me. And I finally was able to locate a physician who was willing to buy one for me and sell it or resell it to me. And that's how I got my iCare Home, which I still use all the time. And I started measuring my pressure pretty regularly, and I found out that it varies greatly. Primarily for me, it's between daytime and nighttime. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I measure my eye pressure, it can be as much as double my daytime pressure. And of course, if I'm only going to the ophthalmologist to have my pressure measured, then I never would have known that. So as a result of finding that out, Barbara and I did a lot of discussion, a lot more research, and I ultimately got surgery to lower my eye pressure at night. So my pressure was manageable during the day and not at night. Now, I'm not saying that everybody has exactly that condition, but certainly eye pressure varies a lot. And I've learned a lot more about that since then. And if it's varying and when it's high, it causes damage, then we really need a way to measure it much more often. So Barbara and I started talking about that. And it was very difficult for patients to get a hold of one of these devices. We started MyEYES for the specific reason of making these machines available to patients. You can go to myeyes.net and you can see how you can rent or buy a machine. Now I'll turn it over to Barbara to provide a bunch of information about eye pressure in the iCare home.
Great, thank you, Paul. So as Paul said, this is not, indicative of everyone's glaucoma case or management, but it really was very much, eye-opening, no pun intended, to see the fluctuation. And taking a step back, so what is glaucoma? Well, it's a slowly progressive optic neuropathy in general. And to date, IOP is still the only modifiable risk factor. And we know based on numerous longitudinal prospective studies that if you lower the IOP, you can slow down the disease progression. As clinicians, we treat and lower elevated IOP, but even in cases of normal tension, if we know there's progression and there's more ongoing damage, we still want to lower that IOP pressure. It's also well known that glaucoma will progress despite well-maintained IOP. And again, when we think of well-managed IOP, that's always been traditionally IOPs in the office. So it really did start to beg the question of, are we missing something? We do also know from the literature, and actually Dr. Robert Rich has been first and foremost in this area, that IOP varies. Not only does it vary diurnally, it also varies throughout the night. We know that it varies due to positioning. We know it varies sleeping. It can vary with cortisol levels, stressors. It can vary with nitric oxide levels. And it can also vary with exercise. We recommend now that patients with severe glaucoma should not be, inverted or down dog. Having your head below your heart, can that raise your pressure? So we know it fluctuates. The other thing that I thought was quite interesting is if you think about that IOP measurement, it's over a few seconds, right? When you have it measured in your office of your doctor, but there's 31 million seconds in a year. And this is just a small snapshot of one time point throughout a lot of the day, night, months, and over that year. We do know that because the IOP fluctuates, we again, as clinicians, as researchers, have wanted to try to measure the IOP. And there's a few devices that have become available. There's one called the Triggerfish contact lens, which you can sleep with. And it actually has an external monitor and a wireless device that clips on. And it basically is a contact lens in your eye. It's a little challenging to use, but it does give you continuous information. There's also a device that's now available in Europe where your doctor can implant it in your eye, again, to give you continuous monitoring. And then for us, we became aware of the iCare home, and it's available in Canada, in the US, in Europe. And it is something that a patient can easily use at home, whereas some of these continuous monitors and devices perhaps are not as easy to use. So in 2017, the FDA cleared it. That's the term that's used for devices. And they said that with that clearance or approval, that it was a prescription device intended as an adjunct to routine clinical monitoring of IOP of adult patients. So patients over 18 can use it if they're under the care of a doctor. They could use it at home, and it's to be additive and supplement what the doctor is already getting in the office. We know that to buy it, it costs about $2,000, $2,500 roughly, but we really started to wonder, does every patient even need to own this device? And this again was really the foundation of MyEYES. And if you think about a Holter monitor, if you're having irregular heart rates or variable blood pressure, you may get a monitor to use for a week or a month. Now, blood pressure monitors, you can have them in your house, but they don't need prescriptions. Glucose monitors for diabetes also have shown the value of that continuous monitoring over time, just not one time point. So it was really around that idea of, can we get something into the hands of a patient, at least even for a short term, to help us as clinicians, as medical care professionals, really understand the variability and perhaps maybe why a patient is progressing. The technology here uses a rebound tonometer. And what that is it's literally just a instantaneous, microsecond where the probe touches the cornea, and it doesn't need any anesthetic. It's easily positioned on your eye, so you don't have to really worry about, any tremors or any issues. It's really designed to be pretty easy to use for patients. And there is a learning curve. So it's not, without some challenges initially. What it does is it allows you to measure IOP. And in looking at the way it was validated, it was actually compared to our Goldman applanation tonometry. So the FDA, in order to clear it, required the company to actually do studies to show that it was getting accurate and reliable measurements as compared to in-office. The other thing that's interesting too is we've been using iCare rebound tonometries in research for years. This is how we measure IOP in dogs and rabbits and rats. There's no pain, there's no irritation, you don't even know what's happening. And we now use it in the office as well when we're doing certain procedures. So it was a technology that we as clinicians have been using and are familiar with. So it's not anything new, except now it puts it in the patient's hands. That's what's new. And what it has is it's allowed us to now look at nighttime pressure. And this is a paper that was recently published in Ophthalmology Glaucoma this last year. And it showed a case of a patient who was a 72-year-old surgeon who had glaucoma. He was using his medications, he was compliant, he was adherent. And I think when I read this paper, what really was shocking was that during the day, his pressures were in the teens. So he was running, 15, 16, he had one maybe spike up to 20, but it was at night when he was spiking up over 40 in his left eye. And in his right eye, he was spiking as high as 28. And this is the type of information that we are now getting because this tonometer is available. The other case is actually Paul's case. As he mentioned, he suffered from controlled, and I use that term, in quotes, normal tension glaucoma for years. So when he was being followed in the office, his pressure would be 12 to 14 millimeters of mercury. And he was also on maximum medical therapy. His visual field loss was extensive. And it was really with this iCare home that we learned his pressure was spiking into the high 20s, which for his amount of damage was unacceptable. And this really, as he mentioned, led to surgery. And again, you sort of wonder as to how long had this been going on and how long perhaps did we believe that he was controlled when perhaps he wasn't. So we also have the benefit of having a dear friend and also a patient on the call, and that's Dr. Peter Farina. So he's going to now speak a few, to how was this helpful? How did MyEYES help him? And also a little bit about how the support worked and what, advantage could this offer to patients. So with that, Peter, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Barbara. So hello, everyone. I'm Peter Farina. I'm a professional scientist. I've worked in the R&D of the pharmaceutical industry for my entire career. And I got to know Barbara professionally through the biotech sector, and I'm also a patient of hers. About 18 months ago, I went for a routine optometry visit, needed some glasses to be refined, and the optometrist checked my IOP and it was high normal. He did an examination and said, I think you have glaucoma. He said, I see optic nerve damage, although it may be a little obscured because you have cataracts. So I followed up, went to an ophthalmologist, and I was diagnosed with glaucoma and also needed cataract surgery. Went through the cataract surgery. I had a stent put in, and so my IOP is well controlled without medication. But talking with Barbara, as a scientist, I realized where I go into for an exam, it's a single point. And as Paul said, that may occur 4 times a year. And that was not satisfactory, particularly as I learned more about diurnal variations in intraocular pressure. And I thought it would be important for me to really understand my well-being, my eyes, my IOP over a 24-hour period. So I was quite fortunate that Barbara and Paul furnished a device. And I was also very fortunate that Chris helped me orientate and get used to the device. I have to say in the beginning, it was a little awkward for me because I was trying to read instructions in the video, but I needed a bit of personal attention. And with one quick Zoom meeting, I was up and running. It was about positioning on my face. And I very rapidly adapted to the instrument. And I actually became a bit addicted to it because I wanted to track as a scientist my IOP. And I believe I did it for almost 2 weeks. And I found that sure enough, my IOP does vary with the day and night. It does not go through large excursions that, Paul and others have encountered, but it does go up during the nighttime period. And to me, it's very meaningful as a patient and as a scientist to understand that if I had serious excursions, I'd want to know about that. And I also feel that it's important as a patient that I should periodically see what happens to my IOP in time. So it's been a revelation. I have my data. It's important to me. And I'd like to thank Barbara, Chris, and Paul for introducing me to the system.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very, very much. So again, just, so that everyone can take a deep breath, everyone will not have high IOPs at night. And we don't want you to walk away with that information. And Peter's a great example of someone where we could say, okay, good, we're controlling his pressure. But again, it just gives you more information and more data. The other thing that we noticed too, or thought about with the iCare home, and I've experienced this with my patients, is the inability to get into the office. And also the need to perhaps be at different parts of the country. and not able to get back to Utah to see me. So again, this is something that's been encouraging, where we could then send the iCare home to a patient in another state, and they can measure their IOP for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, for however long they want. And then we'll have a good idea of whether they need to change medication or if they need to get in to see me sooner. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Epperson, who is our day-to-day in the weeds director in operations, and also my ophthalmic technician, to talk a little bit about how it works and how you can actually, if you're interested, rent the device. So Chris.
Thanks, Barbara, and thanks for all of you who are joining. It's quite an experience to be able to be part of this event with the Glaucoma Foundation, and we definitely thank you for the opportunity to present what we have found as a very vital and important step as a part of the glaucoma, the entire disease process, and hoping to be able to help with all of the patients that we see with that process. So namely, the process that we use is fairly simple. It's something as easy as just navigating straight to our webpage, myeyes.net. And if I can share my screen real quick, I can just walk you through it, I think. Let's see here. So hopefully you can see that. And I'm just going to jump right into our webpage right here. It's very, very simple. If you come down here, you can see the actual device. You click here to rent today, and it brings you right to the rental page. And the process is really, all you need to do is you click here to fill out an order form, basically just telling us your doctor information, your contact information, how we can reach you. You would click on the actual device itself to rent it, and then once you do that, it brings you right up here. You can drop down from the menu and decide how long you would like to rent the device for, anywhere from a week to a month, or even owning a device. And once you check out with the page here, you would get a prescription from your doctor, and that could be sometimes as simple as just an email from their doctor to us stating that they would like the patient to rent the device or own the device for X amount of time, and have them sign it with their professional credentials. And really, from that point forward, I mean, it literally takes probably about within a day, we ship it out to you. You'll receive it within 2 days, give or take a little bit, but it is sent priority mail. And you receive the device with all the instructions. You're able to come back into the rental page. And what we encourage you to do is come down and look at some of the tutorials. iCare has made some very good videos of how actually to use the device. And it's fairly simple. And you open the device, you can start using it right away. It's simple, it's easy, it's quick. And I think that like before mentioned, it can become a little bit addicting in a good way, because you are able to begin to kind of track what that intraocular pressure is. So, and of course, at any point in time, we're always available for support, and I can set up a Zoom meeting if it's something that maybe just a positional kind of thing that needs to be taken care of. So it's really pretty easy, and we love doing it, and hope to be able to share this technology with everybody that's willing to use it.
And I think another thing that Chris brings up too is, we're available to help. Chris has worked with several patients now, hands-on, as Peter has mentioned, doing a Zoom call, showing them how to work it. And I think the patient has access to their numbers. They can actually see the data, and then we immediately, turn the data over to the doctor as well. But we do need a prescription from your healthcare provider, whether it's a glaucoma specialist, comprehensive ophthalmologist, optometrist, but there does need to be a prescription. We cannot write the prescription for you. So that is the one caveat. And thank you, Chris. So with that, Elena, I want to thank the Glaucoma Foundation for this tremendous opportunity. I mean, obviously, as healthcare providers, patients, caregivers, an ophthalmic technician, you know, we see value in this instrument, and we're just trying to help patients basically help manage their disease. So I will turn it back over to Elena.
Thank you very much. Thank you, panelists, for great presentations. And now we have some questions from our audience that will start. I would like to start with the first question. If it's possible, could you do a little demonstration how easy it is to use the iCare home tonometry?
Not a problem. If you give me just 1 second, I'll set one up real quick.
No problem.
Elena, do you want to go to the next question then as Chris gets that started?
Good idea. So while Chris is setting up, let's start. We have quite a bit of questions. So the device covered by most insurances.
So the device is not covered by insurance, and this is part of the problem, as Paul, commented on, as to why it's difficult to get clinicians to actually get it and then use it or give it to patients. So no, but it is most likely, depending, perhaps reimbursable by a flex spending, because as long as you have a code, a diagnosis code, this is a monitoring or medical device, and that's generally what a flex spending account needs to get reimbursed. But again, we encourage you to check with your insurance carrier to see if you do have a flex spending account that could cover this.
Thank you very much. So next question, can the patient directly access their own IOP readings, or is it only available to the doctor?
So I guess Peter, Paul, Chris?
I can answer that. Yes, they have instant access to the data. So once they take the data, literally, they can plug it into their own phone or the phone that we include with the device. It uploads it, and within 2 seconds, they can click online and look at the results, which eye it was, and the overall rating, if it was an excellent measurement, so forth. And from that, they can actually look at graphs of however many measurements they've seen, and they can look at the highs, the lows, which eye. So it's very interactive. It's very, very instantaneous, and it's very easy to just jump on the internet and you can look right up at it.
And at each measurement, it's an average of 6 measurements. So it's not like it's just one measurement, it's actually an average.
Great.
Exactly. In fact, let me show you real quick. Obviously, here's the device. From the back, you press and hold the power button. And the first thing it does is it tells you to load the device. So you'll get your probe, you'll uncap it. And then the easiest thing to do is you put it sideways and it'll suck the probe right inside.
And these are sterile. So you get your own probes. Every patient gets their own probes.
Exactly. So once you have the probe in the device, sorry, they probably didn't see that very good. You can see the device, you can see the probe there. So once that's in, you press the top button once and it'll say it's ready to measure. And at that point, as long as you're holding it in a correct position, you'll get a green light. So here, all right, let me see if I can get into this and show you guys how to do this.
This is great, Chris.
You would adjust the forehead and the cheek rests, and I kind of already know where I'm at. So you're going to hold it. You're going to look into the device. You guys seen that? Okay, there you go.
Perfect.
Look in the device. Sometimes it's easy to cover one eye, and you get it positioned, and then you're going to hold the button down. If it's incorrect, it'll tell you. And right there, it just needs adjusted just a little bit. And perfect. Each of the little beeps you can hear is it recording the measurement. So once you've got 5 measurements, and I'll just hold it there. Once you have the 6 measurements, it'll tell you it's completed. And at that point, you just plug it in and send it right to the website, and you can look at it.
And Chris, you didn't feel anything,
No,
which is very different for,
I'll take that back. You feel a slight little, like a tick is probably the easiest thing. There's no pain. It's almost like someone flicks your eyelash. That's about the most that you feel, if you feel anything at all.
but not like the Goldman. And you don't need the eye drops, which is the other advantage. Which is why they allowed it, was just one of the reasons why the FDA allowed it for home use, because the risk of having any, corneal injury trauma is very, very low, and the patient did not need to administer an anesthetic like you would need in the office. So again, from the FDA's perspective, it was a device that was safe enough for patients to use without any medical training. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you both. There are two logistical questions that I guess will go to Chris. One is, how do you return the device after you use it? And the other question, I know that you covered it in your presentation, but some audience members are asking, how much does it cost to rent versus how much does it cost to buy?
Yeah, so good questions. We've made the shipping process very easy. So it's delivered at your door. We do need a signature on it because of the expense of the machine. So we'll have you sign for it. If you're not going to be home or you have someone else that's going to be there, you can electronically sign for it. It's shipped to USPS, second day priority. So anyway, so you'll get your device, you open it up, and right inside the device, you'll have a return label. So once you're done with the device, you repack it back up, you put the return label on it, and you just drop it off at any UPS or USPS store. You don't have to do anything at all. It just ships it right back for free.
Great.
And sorry. And then the second question, I'm sorry, what was the second question?
The second question was rentals versus
Oh, yes.
Buying it outright. And perhaps you can give us 3 rental points for the device. I know it was in your presentation, but let's repeat it again, versus how much is it supposed to buy.
Sure. So right now it's $250 for the first week and $150 for each additional week. So if you wanted to say rent it for a month, you're going to be running up to around $800. Most of the time, 1 to 2 weeks seems to be what everybody feels comfortable with. It gives us a really good understanding of where their day-to-day IOP is. So prohibitively, sometimes it can be more expensive if you just purchase the device. And that's really why we focus on the rental aspect. But there are patients that want to actually purchase the device for a long-term management as they continue to change their specific treatment protocols. They'd like to kind of keep track of that. The nice thing about the ownership is once you have it, obviously you've got it forever. And as protocols change or treatments change, you can always just pull it out anywhere and check your IOP. The purchase price is just over $2,500. Of course, it comes with the same shipping and everything like that. But so as opposed to shelling out $2,500 versus a couple $100 where you're not really sure if IOP is going to be specific in your treatment protocols, it's easier to go the rental, but we are happy to accommodate anyone with any of the options.
And I guess another key point too to point out is we are not, iCare Home likes the fact that they can send patients to us for access to rent it, but it's not like we are, a subsidiary of them. And again, if you have any questions, if you rent it from us, we are independent of them entirely.
Yeah, good point.
So next question is to you, Barbara. There are guidelines as to what is considered a serious spike.
That's a great question. This is something else that myself and my colleagues and even Paul have discussed. We don't have enough of information. I think each case is going to be independent. We do know that pressure goes up. at night. How much, it comes back to if you're in your doctor's office one day and your pressure's 10 and then you come back 3 months later and it's 18, is that a concerning spike? So it's going to vary case by case. I don't know, Paul, if you want to chime in there.
Oh, Barbara, I think that's the right answer as far as I know, but of course, you're the clinician.
So again, I think for Paul, he was more aggressive with his management, again, because given his case and the amount of the spike. So, as clinicians, we always worry about the bigger variability as being more concerning. I'd rather see, if somebody's staying at 18 and they fluctuate to 20, that's not as concerning to me as if they're generally running at 10 and suddenly they're up to 20. But it's really case by case. And it's something that you need, as a patient to discuss with your caregiver.
Thank you. And one more question, and I don't know whether you can get an exact answer, but maybe close enough. To your knowledge, how many people have used this device and have rented from you or have used it, period?
So how many people have used the device? Probably upwards. I mean, if you asked iCare, probably hundreds. There is a Canadian site who purchased like 40 of these devices and was able to loan them out to their patients in that situation. For us, we're brand new. I mean, if we've given out, I don't know, maybe 11 or 12 so far as rentals.
Yeah,
So we've only been in existence for a few months. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, no, I was agreeing. Yeah, we've had just over a dozen.
But Chris he's batting 100. He's gotten everybody able to use it.
Not had anybody not be able to do it. And we've had several people. I mean, it can be just a matter of just a fraction of an inch or just the right placement. You're doing everything right. And just that one teeny little tip goes from a incorrect measurement to a perfect measurement. And I think with Peter, it was the same thing. He did everything right. He just needed that last little tip. And he was able to do excellent measurements from then on, I think quite successfully.
And there was one question that I noticed, and I think this is important to, again, to bring up, is for the FDA to approve this or to clear it in the device world as a 510K, it had to be validated. So it had to show that it was accurate over time across various different patients, across various different situations to our gold standard, which was the Goldman. So again, that was a very important piece. And if this is all available on the FDA website, but you can have their whole 510K submission documentation, which actually goes through all the studies they did to basically validate it, to show it is reliable and reproducible. And there is variability, even like the Goldman, at a slit lamp. There's variability between technicians and doctors. There is some, it's not 100% foolproof. So, but it's very closely related to a Goldman measurement when they compared it side by side.
Great. Any closing comments, remarks before, because I think we pretty much covered the questions that were in a chat and in Q&A.
I guess the only thing to say, if we're always taking questions, we're always happy to help. If there's any questions, Elena, even if you want to collect and then shoot them over to us, we can help, the organization and your patients, the Glaucoma Foundation.
Thank you very much. And in closing, I would like to thank all the panelists today. I would like to thank you for creating MyEYES program, for answering today's questions. And of course, as always, I would like to thank our audience. We hope that we've given you some important and valuable information and practical solutions for self-monitoring your IOP. And with that, I would like to wish everybody a good evening and thank everybody for the participation. As Barbara mentioned, if you feel your question wasn't answered, you can email me separately and I'll make sure your question is answered. And thank you for participating in today's webinar. Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you, Elena. Thank you so much for everything
Bye.
you do for our glaucoma patients.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.